The winter sun was barely awake when Flight 394 began boarding at Gate C-14. The air smelled like coffee, jet fuel, and tired hope. Typical airport mix. Passengers shuffled forward, clutching tickets, bags, and half-finished conversations. Near the middle of the line stood a girl who looked too young to travel alone, too quiet to be noticed. She wore a black hoodie, faded jeans, and carried a backpack that seemed older than she was. Its cloth edges frayed and the color sun-bleached. But what stood out wasn't her appearance. It was the small silver pilot wings pin fastened to the strap of her bag. At first glance, it looked like a souvenir. On second, it looked earned. She took her seat. 8A, the window. She placed the backpack at her feet and rested her forehead against the glass. The engines outside hummed, warming up for the morning climb through grey clouds. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly, as if calming a storm only she could feel. Passengers nearby whispered. "Looks 15, someone murmured. "Maybe 16, another guessed. "No way she's a pilot. That pin's probably from a gift shop." She didn't respond. She didn't defend herself. Silence was her armor, one she had worn many times. The crew finished routine checks. Then the captain, a tall man with streaks of silver in his hair and confidence in his stride, walked through the aisle. Captains often did this. Greet passengers, calm nerves, ensure presence was felt. His uniform was sharp, his smile practiced, his voice warm. But when his eyes fell on the winged pin on her backpack, something changed. Curiosity sharpened into amusement. He paused, pointed lightly at the pin. "And what's this?" She looked up, dark eyes steady, voice level. "My wings." The captain chuckled, an innocent sound with a sharp edge. "Ah, so you like planes?" he said, tone light but patronizing. "I fly them," she replied simply. Passengers nearby perked up, waiting for more. The captain raised an eyebrow. "Flight sim?" Her expression didn't shift. "Real aircraft." He laughed louder this time, not cruelly but dismissively, like a grown-up humoring a child's fantasy. "Sure you do," he said, patting the top of the seat as if ending the conversation. He walked on, still smiling, not noticing the way her shoulders tensed for just a second, then relaxed again, letting the doubt roll off as if she'd trained for that too. In truth, she had. The plane took off smoothly, climbing past the dense blanket of clouds into brilliant blue. Sunlight filled the cabin, turning the overhead compartments into glowing shells and casting warm patterns across the girl's face. The engines roared, steady, powerful, dependable. She leaned her head back and inhaled deeply. The scent of aviation fuel clung faintly even here, and to her, it smelled like home. Rows behind her, the captain and first officer sat in the cockpit, joking lightly through checklists. The captain mentioned the little pilot in 8A, laughing under his breath. "Kids these days," he remarked. The first officer smirked. "She had spirit, though." "Spirit doesn't fly planes," the captain replied. He wasn't cruel, just certain. Certainty had served him well over 25 years of flying, but certainty had never met her before. 30 minutes into the flight, the calm broke. A sudden jolt shook the cabin, lightly at first, then harder. Passengers instinctively held onto armrests. Cups trembled, overhead lights flickered. Turbulence. The captain's voice came through, confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing minor air disturbance. Please remain seated." Passengers relaxed until a second jolt hit, stronger. The aircraft dipped before stabilizing. A few people gasped. A baby cried. Seatbelt signs flicked on. The girl in 8A didn't flinch. Her eyes were open now, alert, assessing, measuring the rhythm of the engines, like someone who knew what each vibration meant. Then came a sound no passenger ever forgets once heard, a sharp metallic coughing roar from the right engine. The plane shuddered violently. Lights dimmed, flickered, returned. The hum of the engines warped into something uneven, like a heart-skipping beats. The crew rushed down the aisle, strapping carts, calming passengers. The captain's voice came again, still controlled, but the calm was thinner this time. "We are handling a mechanical anomaly." Everyone remained calm, but his voice, Only someone trained or experienced could hear the tremor beneath it. She heard it instantly. She pressed her palms gently against the seat in front, grounding herself, feeling for vibration patterns. Right engine failure, or partial stall. Either way, serious. Her breathing slowed. 1, 2, 3, as if steadying not herself, but the world around her. Inside the cockpit, alarms flashed. The co-pilot swore under his breath. Engine 2, torque irregular, temperature spike, thrust drop. "I see it," the captain replied. They ran through emergency procedures, but the vibration worsened. The engine wasn't responding properly. The plane dipped again, just slightly, but enough that passengers began to panic. Someone screamed, someone prayed, someone pressed the call button repeatedly. In 8A, she simply sat still, eyes closed, lips moving silently. Not praying, but recalling, calculating, preparing. She mouthed 3 numbers. Throttle 60 to stabilize. Bleed air reduction. She wasn't guessing. She was remembering. The intercom crackled again, but this time silence came first. 3 long seconds where fear sat heavy in every chest. Then the captain spoke, his voice steady but stripped of ego and pride. "If there is any fighter pilot on board, please make yourself known to the cabin crew immediately." The words struck the cabin harder than turbulence ever could. Guidelines didn't include that line. Training pushed captains to maintain absolute control, never admit desperation. For him to say it meant only one thing. He needed help. Passengers looked around wildly, searching faces, scanning expressions, hoping someone, anyone, could stand up. Someone whispered, "There's no fighter pilot here." Another shook his head, resigned. But then a quiet sound cut through the panic. Tap! The girl in 8A stood, slowly, purposefully, her backpack slung over one shoulder, wings pinned glinting beneath cabin lights. For the first time since takeoff, she looked around, not shy, not uncertain, but seen. Her voice was steady when she spoke to the nearest flight attendant. "Tell the captain," she said, "Viper 7 is here." The attendant froze, breath caught in her throat. Passengers stared, shock, disbelief, a few with dawning memory, recognition. The girl didn't wait for reactions. She stepped into the aisle, feet firm, jaw set, heart already racing ahead through procedures, possibilities, worst-case scenarios. She wasn't afraid. Not of engines, not of failure, not of doubt. She had lived through all 3 before, and as she walked toward the cockpit, the whispers rose behind her like wind under wings. "Is she real?" She said, "Viper 7. I've heard that name, haven't I? Wasn't that classified?" But she didn't turn, didn't hesitate. She just walked forward, toward the door, toward the danger, toward the sky that once claimed her and was calling again. For the first time since boarding, she allowed herself a single smile, small, sharp, familiar, because the sky had said her name, and Viper 7 always answered. The aisle parted for her as if shaped by invisible hands. Passengers leaned away, wide-eyed, whispering, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. This small, quiet girl moving with the steadiness of someone twice her age, someone who did not walk toward danger, but belonged there. When she reached the cockpit door, the flight attendant pressed the intercom key with trembling fingers. "She says she can help," the attendant whispered. Silence answered, long, heavy. Then the door clicked open. The captain stood there, not mocking now, not amused. His confidence had drained into exhaustion and fear. The thin line of sweat along his temple betrayed the pressure he was holding back inside. He stared at her for a full second, recognition flickering but not settling. "You gave a call sign," he finally said. "Say it again." Her voice didn't waver. "Viper 7, United Air Guard." The co-pilot inhaled sharply, as if hit by something invisible. The captain's face paled. Viper 7 wasn't a nickname. It was a legend whispered among military aviators, a pilot known not for medals or speeches, but for impossible maneuvers under extreme conditions, a name that surfaced only in hushed conversations, often starting with, "Did you hear what she did?" No one expected Viper 7 to be a girl barely past 18. The captain stepped aside. "Get in," Inside the cockpit, alarms pulsed, not shrill panic but relentless warnings. Screens flickered red. ENG2 torque abnorm, temp high, vib alert. The plane pitched slightly right again, the damaged engine threatening stability. She slid into the right seat without waiting for permission. Her hands danced across controls, checking, confirming, resetting. Not rushing, but moving with a rhythm born from thousands of hours in real aircraft and even more in survival training. The co-pilot watched her, stunned. "You know these systems?" She didn't look up. "I know what brakes and how to land it." Outside the windshield, clouds thickened, grey curtains hiding the world below. Turbulence pushed against the wings, making the plane tremble like a living thing in pain. The captain sat buckling in, voice steadier now, not arrogant, not proud, just human. "What do you need?" he asked. She pointed at the engine indicators. "Cut bleed air feed to hydraulics. Reduce throttle to 60%. Don't touch thrust until I say." He did as instructed without question. For a moment, the aircraft steadied. Passengers felt the plane level, and a quiet sigh rolled through the cabin, hope, fragile but rising. "Your record," the co-pilot began. She interrupted gently, eyes still forward. "Classified." A beat, then softer. "I aged out early, not by rules, by circumstance." The captain thought he understood. A pilot who lost too much, too fast, too young. He didn't ask more. Minutes passed. The failing engine sputtered again, and the plane shivered. The horizon tilted, passengers gasped. She gripped the control column, not forcefully, but like holding the reins of a wild horse. "Don't fight it," she warned. "Feel it." The captain switched control to her without announcing it. She breathed with the aircraft, slow inhales matching the tremors of metal and wind. Outside, the clouds thinned, revealing an ocean of white stretching endlessly beneath them. Then she spoke. "We can't restart that engine, but we don't need to." The captain blinked. "One engine landing in this weather?" "Yes." Her tone held no doubt, only experience. The co-pilot swallowed. "What airport?" "Closest field with a runway long enough and crosswind manageable," she answered. The captain checked the map. "Halifax Regional, runway 23. Weather light snow." "Good," she said. He hesitated just a second, then asked the question sitting on his tongue since she stood up. "Who trained you?" Her hands paused only a moment, barely a breath before continuing. "My brother," she said quietly. "He was Viper 6. Silence filled the cockpit, not awkward but respectful, like a flag lowered at dusk. The captain nodded slowly. "Then let's bring 7 home." They radioed approach control. The controller sounded confused, hearing a young female voice giving rapid-fire aviation jargon, but didn't challenge it. As the airport came into view, wind gusts slapped the aircraft. Snow streaked sideways across the windshield. The plane dipped again, hard. Passengers screamed. The captain reached for controls, reflex. But she lifted a hand without looking. "I've got it." Her voice didn't rise, didn't break. It commanded. The captain froze, then leaned back, trusting what instinct screamed was the only right choice now. She reduced throttle, stabilized pitch, trimmed rudder to counter engine imbalance. Every move was deliberate, precise. Muscle memory forged from storms no commercial pilot could imagine. At 500 feet, crosswinds shoved the plane. The runway skewed in the windshield. The co-pilot whispered, "We're too low." "No," she said firmly, eyes sharp. "We're perfect." At 300 feet, alarms beeped warnings. Passengers clutched armrests and strangers' hands. At 100 feet, she breathed once, then flared the nose at the perfect angle. The wheels kissed the tarmac, not slammed, not bounced. Kissed like a promise. Reverse thrust roared from the remaining engine. The plane slowed, shuddering but steady. Then, with a long rolling sigh of metal and wind, Flight 394 came to a safe stop. Silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the cabin erupted. Cheers, sobs, applause, disbelief pouring out like air from a burst dam. Strangers hugged, someone shouted a prayer of thanks, someone fainted from relief. But in the cockpit, no one cheered. The captain turned to her, eyes softer than before, and full of a humility he didn't know he still possessed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for doubting you." She didn't smile, not yet. She just unbuckled, stood and looked him in the eyes. "You saw my face," she replied gently. "You didn't see my wings." Only then did she smile, small, tired, real. As they walked down the jet bridge, she reached the terminal first. The captain lingered behind, watching her disappear into the crowd. Unnoticed, uncelebrated, exactly the way she seemed to prefer. He whispered after her, though she couldn't hear.